Welcome everybody to Substance Days at GDC 2026. Really excited to be here. GDC is always kind of my favorite week of the year for me, just being able to meet again with old friends, old colleagues, and really participate in the community and being able to have all those amazing discussions on new pipelines and workflows. And today we have a lot of really cool announcements to make and some new features coming to the tools. But first, we typically like to start by really showcasing the work from the community. So we have a little reel with a selection of really cool artwork from all you guys. Let's take a look. Right, you can upload all this, do that. Amazing artists. An amazing artist, and we're always really amazed by just the amount and the quality of artwork that's being done with the Substance tools, and especially by students. And I just want to quickly touch on our Student Ambassador program. So this program is really an opportunity for students, young professionals to showcase and improve their portfolio while receiving guidance from experts. Typically, if you're selected for the Ambassador program, you'll be paired with one of our industry veterans that's part of the Substance team and other students from various backgrounds, not just games, but also all kind of 3D backgrounds, to really just try to grow your skill sets, grow your social reach together over the course of the year. So this program is open to students of all majors, currently only available in the United States. But before I give you a link to kind of register to be on the Ambassador program, I just want to show a quick testimonial from one of our ambassadors from last year.
I was very lucky to be part of the program with Adobe. I feel for me it was great to know more about the other industries and getting to know more about what Adobe is doing besides the tools I already knew before. This program opened me a lot of doors to connect with people from the industry, people who develop the tools that we use every day, which is great. I was here last year. That's how I met the Adobe team for a portfolio review. And it kind of like naturally evolved into being part of the Ambassador program. And then I was able to come here at GDC and do a talk, which is like a dream come true. It's awesome.
All right, so if you're interested and want to register for the program, there's a link over here, and you can come talk to us on our pod as well. Come to the people who are doing the portfolio reviews as well, and we'd love to have you. All right, let's go into the tools. And again, we have a lot of announcements today. We have a new version of Substance Painter 12.0 that we released this morning, a few hours ago. Has some really cool features in it. So let's go through it. First of all, let's start with the Painter's layer stack. We've been seeing a lot of feedback over the years on how can we enable you to extract more useful information from the layer stack without having to go through a full export process, which can be cumbersome. So we're improving a few things here. You can now select an arbitrary number of layers in your layer stack. You can group them and you can export the flattened result directly from the right-click menu without having to go through the full export process. You can do the same thing with any number of layers, any number of folders, and you can also batch export those all at once. So you can select multiple layers, export all the channels to disk right away, Same thing for masks as well. So you don't have to temporarily turn off some layers and then go through the export process. We're just trying to make this kind of quick export as fast as possible. And with this come also a feature that's been asked for a very long time now, is the ability to collapse layers. Until now, if you had a very complex layer stack, you have to keep everything live all the time, because that's kind of the nature of Painter, is just everything stays live in your stack. You'll now be able to select any folder, collapse it, and it'll basically be replaced by just a single fill layer, allowing you to make your projects lighter, faster, and just overall allow you to manage your layer stack a little better. Ooh, right? It's not super sexy, but really it just helps you like all day long. You feel like this giant layer stacks in Painter. Next up is projections and decal. So over the last few years, we've added several new ways to apply decal onto objects, including shortcuts and gizmos and new projection methods, but it's always been very manual. You have to kind of place your projection points all over your model, and it can be a little cumbersome and time-consuming. So with Painter 12.0, we're introducing a new warp to geometry projection mode. We built this in collaboration with Adobe Research. There's a lot of very complex math in there, but it really literally wraps itself onto any geometry in real time. So, actually, Lucrezia was going to be doing a live demo right after. We'll show you how that works for a character work that you see right here. But it really allows you to place the decal very accurately without any distortions on very complex objects that may have complex curvatures, some holes in the middle. It's a bit hard to visualize like this, but the demo will do a really good job at showing you how it works. And on the rendering side also, we're introducing a new post-processing stack for the viewport. So Painter always had post-processing before. We just rebuilt this from the ground up as a much higher quality, much faster post-processing stack with physically accurate glare, tone mapping, many other effects. The main point here is that the new FX stack is part of our effort to really unify viewports across all our applications. So you'll now find the exact same post-processing stack across Painter, Designer, and Sampler. All right, and finally, for this release, we've also done some work on the new project and project configuration window to just make them more straightforward. There's a lot of options, always by default. We're now categorizing these options a little better, so it will just be easier to set up your project without having to fiddle with a lot of settings in that new project window. And in the project configuration window, something that also seems very small, it's been requested for a long time, is just really to reload a mesh without having to look for it again. So if you just update your mesh, hit reload mesh, reloads it right away, and you don't have to worry about it. All right, so that's for 12.0. We have another release coming this month as well, and is the beta for 12.1. So that beta will be an open beta. It'll be available both on the Creative Cloud and on Steam, and it has some pretty amazing features. They're not quite finished yet, that's why it's a beta, but it's really very usable and very fun to use. So there's two main updates in this beta. First one is baking. So we know a lot of you guys are doing baking in Painter, but we've been missing some features for quite a while, and the team has been putting a ton of work on improving the baking experience in Painter. And you'll see these improvements coming over the course of the year. The beta already has plenty to look forward to. What we have in this beta is auto rebaking. So you can enable auto rebaking. It allows you to rebake automatically anytime you make a change. We made the baking a lot faster as well. That really proves useful when you use it with the new skew correction feature with local baking. And that allows you to paint your skew correction on your model and then see baking happen in real time just for the parts you painted. So it's something that's been missing from Painter for a while. We're really happy to finally have it. And last but not least, we also have a new hard surface option for automatic UV process. We've had automatic UVs for quite a while in Painter, but the result for hard surface was kind of wonky. You had, maybe the faces were not, vertical or horizontal, and it was always a little hard to texture on top of it. That new hard surface methods make sure that everything stays very straight, very, at the right angle, no distortion, and just allows you to just quickly create UVs automatically for hard surface objects. All right, I'm going to go a little bit in detail on the baking part of things. So this model is a typical example of hard surface work where skew correction is mandatory. It may not be evident at first, but almost every detail on that normal map has some sort of distortion. So we now have that skew correction option at the bottom that will enable the skew correction painting. We can enable the normal vectors. You can see how they gradually get skewed as we get to the side of the flat surface. And we're now able to paint a mask on these normal details to unskew these vectors and get rid of distortion when we rebake. We can turn auto rebake so that every time you paint something, it just rebakes automatically just that part. And you can see here, we can just paint those super quickly, and just you can see the normal map just like fixing itself kind of automatically in here. We can also use the polygon fill tool with this, so I can just fill polygon and just rebake right away. You can see on the edges, we get a little bit of seams, and that's because typically when you paint skew, you want to avoid the edges because the vertex are going to split, normals are going to split. So we have that new option that protects the edges, so that no matter where you select, you have that kind of thin, like feathers all on the edges that makes the skew just perfect. So again, huge time saving for those of you working with hard surface stuff. Can't wait to see what you think. Tell us how we can improve the feature. Tell us if you have issues with it. We just want to improve that with you guys during this beta until the release. Second part of that beta is the introduction of OpenPBR into Substance Painter. So OpenPBR will become the new default material model in the painter. Don't worry, you still have the old material model, so if you're working on a project right now, you'll still keep your shader as is. And we'll get into more details later in the keynote about OpenPBR, but really the goal is to just have better interoperability between Substance and other 3D applications, and just overall better visual quality. All right, so that's it for the new features in Painter. We now have a live demo, and so join me in welcoming Lucrezia Romeo to the stage for a live demo of the latest that Painter has to offer.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Lucrezia Romeo, and I'm a character artist at the French studio Slow Club. First of all, I want to thank the Substance team for inviting me. I'm super excited to be here today. So let me introduce you to this character. This project is called Wispunk. She's a post-apocalyptic survivor, and I wanted to reflect her story through every detail. That's why I worked on this project for a very long time, on and off for about a year and a half. And I'm super excited and proud to announce that she's now the hero asset of this year's release of Substance Painter. As you can see, there are a lot of different materials, which makes it an interesting project for texturing. And thanks to the post-apocalyptic direction, I could spend a lot of time and focus on adding storytelling through the wear and tear of the textures. So to today's live demo, I'll show you how I approach the texturing process and how the new features fit into my workflow. I'll start with how I use scans for the face, then I'll move on to procedural tools such as ribbons, embroidery, and stickers, and finally I'll show you how I did the rust and peeling paint. All right, so let's dive right into it. So I'm going to start with the face. So for the face, the goal was to have a pretty realistic result, and what worked really well for me was to have scans as a base. So I'm going to demonstrate how I fit the scans onto the head by using this material here available in the asset library. So I'm going to start by drag and dropping it on top of the head while holding Alt to place it as a decal. And right now it looks a bit crazy with the eyelashes on the cheeks, so I'm going to just scale it a bit to better fit the proportions of the head, like so. And so what worked for me originally was to fit each point individually like this. And I mean, it was a quite long and tedious process. But as Jérémie showed earlier, we now have the warp to geometry feature. So let me show you how it works. I'm just going to go back in the grid mode. And here on top, we have the button for warp to geometry. And when I click on it, you can see that it warps automatically around the meshes. In our case, it wraps around the hair, which we don't want, but it will take into account every mesh that is currently visible. So I'm going to isolate the head, wiggle it a bit to refresh it, and there we go. Right now it warps perfectly around the face. So of course, it's not perfect. We still need to adjust some things around. So to do that, I'm just going to add some, I'm going to scale it a bit right there. I'm going to add some new points to have more control on how I fit the features. So maybe add one split there and another one on the other side. And also add a horizontal split here on the mouth. And then I can start moving some points around, and they will continue to just fit to the mesh, and so that's all throughout the process. It allows me to fit to the face perfectly. So there we go. I mean, I would spend more time on it to fit perfectly around every feature, but I think that for this demo, you get the idea. So bringing back the rest, if now I hide the grid, we can see exactly how much of a base it gives us. So not only for base color, but also all the other channels such as roughness, subsurface scattering, etc. And if I bring back my original textures, we can see exactly how much I built on top of that base. So I added a lot of blush, freckles, tiny scars, and a whole layer of dirt because, I mean, she is in a post-apocalyptic setting. So that's it for how I fit the face. But while we're here, there's another feature I want to briefly highlight, which is the fact that we can now have symmetry for fill layers. So in our case, even with warp projection, it will work. So I'm going to activate the symmetry right up there. I need to offset the axis because my character isn't centered. And there we go. Now we can see the symmetry in action. And what's nice is that even when moving the points, they will still work while in symmetry. So it's fun to tweak it like that. But I think that for a face, actually, I wouldn't necessarily have symmetry because I think that the imperfections in the asymmetry add a lot to the textures of the face, but it's still a nice feature to have. All right. Now, another thing I want to show you is how I did the holes here on the shirt. So moving on to another kind of surface. So for the shirt, I wanted to make a plain white shirt more interesting, so I added all those holes and made it very worn and dirty. And how I did the holes, I think it's an interesting detail because it's always kind of a tricky thing to do, to play with opacity. So it was actually in two different ways. So if I isolate it, here on the top, it's actually real opacity masking that reveal an underlying mesh because I wanted to have this variation in volume. But for example, here on the side, it's just faking it through height and ambient occlusion. And to actually do the shape of the holes, I'm going to show you exactly how. I used the path tool, especially the ribbon path. So here I'm going to select it and create a new paint layer. And I'm going to do that inside this folder, and just let me show you by creating a new hole together. First thing is I'm going to choose another preset, so the fabric edgeware preset will do exactly that. And I'm just clicking to create a new hole and clicking back on the first point to close off the shape. So right now it looks way too big, but the ribbon are fully procedural, so I can just tweak every parameters to get the result that I want. So by scaling it down, you might see that now it reveals that the ribbon is just a stroke, but I have a fix for that. I can just add a filter, specifically the fill area filter that will fill the hole. And now we won't have that problem anymore, even when moving the points around. Perfect. So for the result of the wear that we have here, actually I didn't want to have too many micro details and all those tiny holes. I wanted something a bit more smooth and stylized. So I'm going to tweak some of the parameters, such as the tearing intensity. If I bring it down, it removes all those tiny holes. Have more tearing irregularity, which adds a lot of variation to the shape. And I can also tweak the look of all those little strands by changing the strands amount and the strands length. All right, so I think now our hole is looking pretty good, and that's basically how I did all the other holes. However, the only thing I did was also add a paint layer to paint some strands that go across the holes. And the last thing that I did to really make them pop was add a little bit of height and a lighter color around the edges. And I think that really makes them really pop. All right, so thanks to the ribbon, I could have all those little imperfections and those tiny strands without doing them directly in the sculpting phase, where I would have needed to have a really high poly count to get all those little fine details. So it made me save a lot of time on that. And that's why I pretty much use the ribbons all around the characters. So using the same preset, I did the edgeware here on the end of the shirt, but also on the edges of the cape and on the denim skirt here. And using actually the stitch preset, I also did all the stitches here on the leather elements, on the pouches and the gloves. And I also used a tape preset here, moving on the antenna for this detail here. And also for more art surfaces, such as the welding here on the metallic parts of the shoe. And last but not least, the little rivets here on this gas mask. All of them were done with the ribbon. And actually, while I'm here, a quick side note on this gas mask and this radio and all those tiny tools, they were actually from the Substance 3D library. So I didn't model them from scratch, I just optimized them a bit to fit my game-ready constraints. And I could save a lot of time on the modeling to have more time on the texturing, which is the step that I love the most. And you might recognize this radio from earlier, actually. So yeah, that was the quick side note. Going back to the shirts. All right, so that was it for the holes, but let me also show you how I did this little embroidery detail, which I think add a lot of visual interest to the shirt. So for this, it was actually pretty simple and straightforward. I used the embroidery here from the asset library. So let's drag and drop it on top of the shirt. All right, it's looking a bit too big, so I'm just going to scale it down there. And I'm just going to input my own image, and it will convert it automatically into an embroidery. So there we go, already we have a pretty nice looking embroidery. And in my case, to achieve this one, I only wanted to have one main color, so I can change the number of colors here to make it red. And it was all about how I fine-tuned the parameters to get the result that I wanted. So I tweaked a bit the thread thickness to get a very different kind of result. And I could have also switched for another design, such as a top stitch, or an outline, or a fill with outline. It looks kind of like a patch, which is cool. But in my case, I just left the default fill design. And already it looks pretty nice, but the last thing that was left was to just tweak the colors a little bit to better match the fact that the shirt is very worn. So maybe changing a bit the saturation, like so. Hue shifting it a bit, and it's not perfectly similar, but I think you get the idea for this. So that was it for the embroidery. And actually, moving on to the antenna here, there's another detail I want to show you because it's kind of similar. It's the stickers that we have here. So for the stickers, it's kind of the same thing as the embroidery, but this time using the custom sticker. I'm going to drag and drop it on top, input my own image again. There we go. Again, it's a bit too big, so let's scale it down. And already we have a pretty nice looking sticker. However, it looks a bit too clean and brand new, and I mean, this antenna has clearly been through a lot. But what's nice about the stickers is that we have a lot of parameters for the wear and tear, actually. So let me demonstrate by making it look more worn. I'm going to bump up the sticker edge wear here. All right, I can also make the folds look more intense. And what I also liked was adding a corner fold like I have here. And I can change the angle from where it's coming from. So let's maybe make it come from the top, like so. And I can add a lot of sticker damage to start and remove some of the color, like this. Nice. Now it's looking already a bit more worn, but now it reveals the underlying residue glue that looks a bit too clean. So I'm going to make it look a bit darker like this. And maybe make it spread a bit less. All right. And same as the embroidery, I think we can tone down a bit the saturation because right now it looks a bit too clean, and maybe let's make it look a bit darker. And voila, now we have a more post-apocalyptic sticker that is very worn. All right, so now more about wear. The next thing I want to show you is how I did the wear on the more metallic accessories. And I did some peeling paint with rust here on the antenna, on the gas mask here, and on the tank behind her. And it was pretty much the same recipe all throughout, so let me show you exactly how I did it. So here on the tank, I wanted to have the effect of paint peeling off from the metal. So that's exactly how I built my layer stack. So if I hide this folder that has all the paint, we can see the metal underneath. And bringing back the paint, there we go. I'm going to hide the peeling that I did before. All right. So to have the peeling paint, I simply used the Matte Effects peeling paint here as some kind of filter underneath the folder. And already we can see some peeling happening. And what's really nice about it is that it adds height, which really gives us the illusion that we have a thick layer of paint on top of the metal, which is nice. I can make it peel a bit more. There we go. And what I also liked was adding some air bubbles, which add a lot of height variation all throughout the rest of the paint, like so. I can also add some more flaking, which adds a different kind of noise. And I think it looks pretty nice like this. All right, so now that's pretty much it for the peeling paint. I could tweak it a bit more. I made it peel more than what I had originally, but I think it looks pretty nice like this. What can we do to make it look even more post-apocalyptic is add rust to make it look even more worn. And for this, I'm going to use the Matte Effects Rust again, but this time as a material that I will place here on top of the paint. Already we can see some of the rust, and I'm going to make it spread more. What's interesting is that we might notice that it spreads from the metallic spots first, and I think that's a nice touch because it's kind of physically accurate, right? And because of this, it works together with the peeling of the paint. So if I want to reveal more of the rust, I can just make the paint peel more. And it's very nice to have this kind of interaction between the two. So for the rust, I'm just going to tweak maybe the varnish scale, which adds this kind of nice edge detail here. And add more drips, which adds a nice storytelling touch to the tank. And the last thing is maybe tweaking a bit the base color intensity, because right now it's looking a bit dark. And there we go. Now we have a pretty nice post-apocalyptic tank, even more worn than what I did before. All right. That was pretty much all I wanted to show you for the texturing, but I want to demonstrate how two of the new features work. So the first one being how we flatten layers. So as Jeremy mentioned, we can now optimize our files by flattening layers, which is really nice, especially if, like me, your files get very heavy, especially since I use a lot of procedural tools such as anchor points and a bunch of layers. And for this, it's pretty simple. We can flatten individual layers, but also whole folders, which is what I'm going to do here for the tank. So I'm going to just right-click, and here I can flatten the group. And you see it's pretty fast. And what that does is that it flattens each texture into their own channel. And it will hide our previous folder. So we don't see any difference visually, but it's way more optimized. And it won't delete the folder, but of course, if I wanted to really optimize the project, I would have to delete it. And in that case, it's important to note that it's based on the UVs. So of course, if I change my UVs afterwards, it won't work anymore. All right, now the last thing I want to show you is actually a quick note on post effects. So you might have noticed that I have post effects going on. You can tell, especially with the very strong vignettes. Post effects have been around for a while now in Substance Painter, but we now have way more control on it and on things like bloom, for example. We even have new post effects available, such as chromatic aberration, which I have on right here, and we even have depth of field. It wouldn't be the most convenient value texture, but I think it's still cool to take some nice cinematic screenshots. If I show you before and after the post effects, we can see how much it adds to my viewport. It makes it look very much better. And of course, for me, it's not only to make it look better, it's also a way to better match the final result I would have in another software, such as in my game engine, where there is almost always post effects available. And having a better match makes me save time on doing back and forth between different softwares. And that was all I wanted to show you for today's live demo. Even though I didn't go into every single detail, I hope I gave you a clear overview of how I used Substance Painter to texture Wispunk. If you have any questions about the features or the character, feel free to ask at the end of this presentation. And you can follow me on my work on ArtStation with that link here. Thank you so much. That's it for me.
There you go. All right. Thank you, Lucrezia. Amazing work. It's always great to, we're building all these new features and seeing them in action on this kind of assets is always so rewarding. All right. Next up, we're going to talk about Sampler a little bit. For those of you who've not tried Sampler yet, first you should. And second, it's an app that's really centered around digitizing and scanning real-life surfaces and converting them to PBR materials. So it's a little different from Designer that's really about creating materials from scratch procedurally. There's been plenty of updates to Sampler last year, including filters to automatically tile structured materials like fabrics, filters to remove folds and defects from scans and photos, and the next major version of Sampler will be released next month. It will come with new material creation templates, improvements to the layer stack as well, and to our HPZ Captis workflow, as well as support for OpenPBR. If you've never seen or used HPZ Captis before, it's a capture device that we co-designed with HP. It's really dedicated to scanning materials, a really high level of accuracy and resolution. It's used mostly in the fashion industry, VFX industry, but it can really be used in anywhere that you need to reproduce real, accurate materials. All right, on to Substance 3D assets. Our 3D assets platform keep growing thanks to a team that just never stops producing amazing content. We now have more than 23,000 assets available for download, and we added thousands of new 3D models and materials the past year alone. We've always the same exigence in terms of quality. Each model has clean, quad-based topology, is subdiv ready, is scaled accurately, has clean, unique UVs, and is segmented into multiple materials. I can say probably it's the largest library of that kind of quality of assets available out there, and it's free for basically anybody using the Substance tools. As Lucrezia mentioned, you can use those in your project directly, texture them, edit them, do whatever you want with them. And we're now adding new asset types to the platform as well. One thing I'll mention, since this morning, all our 3D models are also available as USD format. So we have GLB, FBX, and USD for all those 3D assets. We're now adding new asset type to the platform, including new ribbon tools. So there's a quick video showing the new ribbon content. All right, so we have, thank you. Thank you to the 3D Assets team building all that content. It's a huge amount of work. And so in the platform, we have now 130 of them ready to go. You can use them, you can edit them, and you can create your own, of course, in Substance Designer. We're also adding new texture generators. So it's a new category of parametric noises and grunge that behave like alphas. They can be used to add variations, imperfections, surface depth, pattern, all those kind of things, of course, in Painter or Sampler. They're amazing to use as new grunge maps to add details. On that platform, since the very inception of that platform, it was initially called Substance Source. We've always wanted to have artists at the core of it. And we've had dozens of guest artists over the years producing content that's then made available for everyone to use and dissect on the platform. In the past year, we released 3 of this signature collection. The first one from Stan Brown on the theme of medieval architecture. We also had a really cool series of planets and moons from Matthias Schmidt. We had the natural environment materials from Sherif Dawood. And we're now introducing this week a new signature collection on the theme of desirable patina, which really is a poetic way of saying rust. And I know environment artists love the rusts and the rocks. So a lot of rust for you guys to play with. We have, in this new collection, 10 rust materials, 12 noises and grunge, and texture generators, again, to create all kind of really cool looking rusts. For all that content that's being built on the platform, we also have a Behance page with tons of articles and interviews from the signature collection artists and other projects, so feel free to go check it out. There's a ton of amazing content and breakdowns on there. All right, so all that content cannot happen without Substance Designer. It's used to create all the materials, all those ribbons, and it's really at the core of all our Substance contents. But some of them, even though it's built to create material, some of you guys just want to hijack the whole thing and create whatever your crazy mind set itself to. That's why we have the Insanity Awards. So we want to recognize those of you who think outside the box. sometimes really, really, really far outside the box. So here are this year's nominated for the Insanity Awards. All right, crazy, right? So we just saw in 5th place, we have a regular on the Substance designer scene, Javier Perez and his Ladybugs, the amazing animated material here. And 4th place, we have some impressive landscape work by Hyun-Young Yeon with, again, just amazing work creating these mountains and valleys all coming together in these renderings. 3rd place goes to Romain Lemaire and his incredible realistic spider webs with tons of customization and like physics-based distortion and stuff. It's pretty amazing to look at the breakdown. 2nd place, Rebecca Elshier with this incredible Rubik's Cube, some really ingenious use of displacement and animation. And if you let it go for long enough, it actually solves itself, which is pretty cool. And finally, the project that kind of blew us away this year is this fully functional Tetris game by Bayev Evgeny. The work is just incredible. The breakdown on ArtStation goes through every aspect of the logic, from the 3D buttons to the math and probability behind the bricks behavior. Please go on their ArtStation. It's just a crazy project, and it's all just one node that's outputting this animation you see here. So a new challenge for next year. I'm looking forward to see a Substance graph that plays Dooms by itself. Right? It's next level. All right, so let's go into Substance Designer itself. So we have a new update coming in a couple of weeks. We had some pretty major update last year. We have a new renderer, USD support, allowing you to load full 3D scene in the app. This time, we're introducing new nodes, the most important one being a new shape splatter. So for those of you who've never used it, allow you to scatter shapes across the texture with a high level of control. It's really useful to create all sorts of organic, natural materials. This new version had the ability to splatter not only 2D shapes, but also 3D primitives. Also allows you to use Atlas as an input, allowing you to have basically an infinity of different inputs that you can bring in. So if your Atlas is like 8 by 8, you'll get 64 inputs. But also that comes with a splatter. You can splatter SDF data. And what you see here on the screen is actually 20 new nodes allowing you to build and combine SDF shapes together with Booleans to create actual 3D objects inside of your Substance graph. And then you can use those 3D objects as input for the scatter nodes. So you can actually scatter these 3D objects on your texture with the depth and the normal map and everything. And it just gives you so much more control. And each object can be unique because it has its own rotation and transform and all those things. So it's a kind of a brand new way of splatting shapes onto your texture. And there's plenty of controls that go with it. Also comes with new ribbon templates, so you can create your own ribbon tools the same way that we built ours that are on the Substance 3D asset platform. So again, plenty of more fun to be having with Substance graphs. Also some improvements on displacement, with just better performance for displacement and new controls that makes it a lot easier to tweak and adjust your displacement in the viewport. And finally, a common theme today, we're adding OpenPBR as a new material option in Designer. So don't worry again, the legacy material model and templates are still there, but we're now embracing OpenPBR as a default material model across the board this year. And actually to tell us more about OpenPBR, I'll cede the stage to our very own world famous Wes McDermott. Take it away, Wes.
All right, thank you so much, Jeremy. And hey, everyone, it's awesome to be here at GDC yet again. Oh, there's my little intro. Okay. All right, yeah, so today I am super excited to be talking about OpenPBR and how I think this is genuinely going to change how you work. So we're bringing OpenPBR to Substance 3D Painter Beta as well as Designer 16. Okay, now, what is this, right? So OpenPBR, it started as a collaboration between Adobe and Autodesk as an open shading initiative with one goal, and that is to define a physically based material model that artists and studios could rely on regardless of their pipeline, their renderer, their platform, not tied to any one specific implementation, just a solid, open standard that the entire industry could just continue to build upon. So here, in this, what I'm showcasing here is Substance Painter's beta viewport. And so here you can see an asset that was created by Lucrezia and also set up by our very own Celine Dameron. So again, you can see what this actually looks like in the Substance Painter viewport. All right, so a quick transition over here is now we're starting to see that same asset in both Painter and Designer. So what this means is that the materials that you author in Substance are now grounded in this modern, physically based specification designed for production. For you as an artist, that translates directly into better shading accuracy, fewer surprises when you move assets between tools, and less time doing like manual cleanup or conversion work. Now, one thing you're thinking is, yeah, we've had physically based rendering, you know, what is this? And so, yeah, it's been here for a long time, going all the way back to the, you know, the old days, or the 24, remember that, Jeremy? So, you know, we had all that stuff, but the thing is with OpenPBR is, and you know, probably just working in production, you've had your maps and stuff, but, you know, there was never really a standard, right? This render does it this way, that render does it that way. So really, this is what's happening here with OpenPBR. And it really comes down to that consistency is the foundation of what is making OpenPBR possible. So, you know, it's basically standardizing PBR is what we're talking about. Okay, so OpenPBR is also coming to Sampler as well. So again, that same standard I was just talking about, same consistency across the entire Substance workflow. So in this video here, you can see how the integration looks inside a Sampler as OpenPBR channels are then easily added to the viewport shader, again, using that same material model. So here you can see that popping up, and that's what I'm talking about this consistency, is using specific named descriptions for channels that are going to translate perfectly across all the different software that you're using. So in this case, once I have that set up, I can continue working with my material knowing that these same channel descriptions, like I said, will be the same across the entire pipeline no matter where you're going. And with that said, if we take a look here, pipelines, as we all know, are pretty complex. And in this slide, you can see the same asset beyond just Substance. So here we're looking at OpenPBR being now supported across Maya, 3ds Max, Unreal Engine, Blender, V-Ray, Redshift, Houdini. We just keep going, and that list does just keep growing, right? So it's natively supported in USD and Material X, which means that this fits right into where the industry is already headed with various open standards. So really, the way I like to wrap this up is saying that this is about future-proofing your work. You're authoring once and trusting it looks right everywhere. So we really believe in OpenPBR, and we want to help accelerate OpenPBR adoption across the ecosystem by making this implementation open source, which is now available in GitHub. So it is a very simple and intuitive API, has no external dependencies, can be included in a single header file, can be compiled in 5 different programming languages. Speaking of ecosystem, though, I am super thrilled to announce, now this is my favorite announcement here for the day. So my favorite 2 apps, I love Substance Painter, of course, but I also love ZBrush. And so what I'm really happy to say, yeah, ZBrush users. So what I'm really happy to say here is Substance Painter, in collaboration with our good friends at Maxon, we are announcing a ZBrush to Painter bridge workflow. So, yes. Okay, I'm taking a little bit extra, I'm sorry. Does anyone remember like 10 years ago when we were doing a GDC, I think it was 2013 or something like that, we first were implementing Substance Alchemist. If anybody was in the room and remembers that, we were talking about doing this, and it's, I'm just happy to say, hey, it's finally here. I don't know if anybody else remembers that night, but I still remember that. Jeremy does. Okay, anyways, my good friend, Ian Robinson, ZBrush extraordinaire. I think he's here today. Ian, are you in here? Can you stand up if you are? Ian? Oh, no, he's not in here. But he is going to be with us, so if you have any questions about this, Ian will be really super happy to talk to you. So with that said, let me just look at one last thing here. So I've got a quick video that Ian did create for us. So starting with the sculpt in both the high and low poly, you can see poly groups are added, and then the send to substance with options for sending both like your high poly. You've got ability to do auto wrap through Painter, send per subtool, poly groups as well, and then there was an option to auto bake. So what you're seeing right now in the video is that auto bake process just happened, processed all your maps, you got everything together, and now you're ready to start doing some Substance Painter magic. So your sculpting pipeline and your texturing pipeline are now connected in the ways that we always wanted. Awesome. I'm super happy about that. Okay. So between bringing OpenPBR material consistency across the industry and ZBrush connecting directly into Substance Painter, this has been a big moment for what's possible in your workflows. Stay tuned. We'll have a lot more news to share soon. And so with that, I'm going to bring up Jérémie again to talk about Adobe Research. Thank you.
Thank you, Wes. So the ZBrush link is not available quite yet, but very, very soon. For real this time. I'm not going to have to wait 10 years. All right, so before we end the keynote, I just wanted to give a little preview of some of the projects our research team at Adobe has been working on. We have a really large research team at Adobe that works across imaging, video, 3D, and we do a lot of that work, our collaborations between our teams working on the product and the research team working on like really complex rocket science stuff. So a few projects I want to highlight. One of them is that warp to geometry that we just showed. It's really a deep collaboration between the research team and the Painter team, building this, this very complex math behind this to make sure that it's real time, that it updates all the time, that it works on any kind of surface. It's a ton of complex, really high-end stuff that goes on there, even though the feature, is really easy to use. So again, big shout out to the teams working together to make this happen. The second project I want to highlight is something called Glinty. And that is really very specific. It's a piece of shading code that allows you to render glittery material at a very low cost and high precision. And it maintains temporal consistency, which is a big deal and didn't happen before. It's especially useful for things like car paint, snow, ice, anything that when you look at it, there's all these little glints and particles of light appearing. It can be integrated in any real-time shader. And the code is available on ShaderToy at that address here, so you can try it in your game engine. It really looks really, really good on a lot of surfaces. And finally, I just want to highlight a little bit the work that's being done on Gaussian Splat. We're doing a lot of work and exploration with Gaussian Splat, not only as a format to capture object, but also as a potential 2D format and kind of a rich 2D format that allows you to do edits like you would on an image, but with all that spatial ability and and all the lighting information that's in there. And especially, how can we use potentially Gsplat as a render target instead of an actual 3D format? And so here you can see some example where we're using typical 2D tools like a lasso tool and selection tool to edit those 3D shapes as we would 2D images. And so this is something that, again, is very early on, but we're really exploring what could be done in the future with this format that kind of abstracts itself from polygons. All right, last thing about our user research program. So, of course, we always want to hear about you and, and how you want to work. Our user research program allows you to get in really, really early when we do concept phases, when we're designing stuff, to really give your opinion on things and questions we may have. So if you want to participate, please also register to our user research program. All right, we're coming to the end of this presentation. I just wanted to say something a little personal here. This year is a little bit special for me because it marks 20 years since I've joined the Substance adventure. It's been a while, I'm getting old. When I moved to the US, from France to the US in 2013, one of my main tasks was to help studios integrate Substance. The issue was there weren't that many studios that actually wanted to use Substance in the first place. But the team at Naughty Dog was one of the few that saw the potential of it, the potential of Substance Designer and procedural texturing. And we spent months working with them to make sure Designer would meet the standards of a free AA production. And in 2016, that was 10 years ago, and this very same room actually, 3003, which is half of this. We had a small room at the time. They were kind enough to share that journey with the rest of the industry, and that was kind of the start of how Substance really blew up in the gaming industry. So thinking that we had a small part in building at the time the most beautiful game I had ever seen, was such a joy and remains a core memory for me. And 10 years later, seeing the lineup we have today, I'm feeling the same joy and pride. So today, we have an amazing lineup. We'll have people from id Software talking about the texturing of Doom the Dark Ages. We have the team from Sandful Interactive talking about how they built Clair Obscur Expedition 33. We have Vincent Desrosiers, who's going to do some amazing work in Designer. We have the team of Compulsion Game showing the art of South of Midnight, which is amazing art style. And my favorite game of last year, we'll have the people from Machine Game showing how they build the art from Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. So stick around. The whole day is going to be amazing presentations. If you want to meet the team starting tomorrow, you can find us in the West Hall, second floor, just downstairs. We'll have a booth where we can ask questions. We'll be here to answer any of questions, getting feedback from you. If you want to do portfolio reviews as well, we'll have some of the amazing artists in the team that will do portfolio reviews, so you can register to get a slot with that link here. And swing by the booth as well if you don't have time to look at the link here. And of course, tonight, we have the after party. So please RSVP to the after party. I know there's a big fancy GDC party at the ballpark, but if you want to hang out with the cool kids, just come to our party. You'll have free booze, free drinks, free food, just come. All right, thank you, everyone. It was great. Again, we have lots of cool content this week. And I think we have a little bit of time for Q&A. So I think we have microphones over here and over there. If some of you have questions, please go ahead. I can't see you because the lights are just like blowing in my face, but. Yeah, go ahead, Mike. Yeah.
Hello. Thank you so much for this great presentation. I'd just like to say the Substance to ZBrush bridge was amazing. That's so awesome. I actually have a question for Lucrezia. I'm also a 3D character artist, and I was just wondering how you got into 3D character art and any tips or just information for character artists going into the industry right now.
The microphone is on.
My mic on? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for the question. So how did I get into character art? So actually, I was a student not so long ago. I graduated 2 years ago. And throughout my studies, I did a lot of different studies about just game art in general. And actually, I drew a lot beforehand, and what I like to draw was characters. So that's how I transitioned into just doing characters into 3D. And any tips? I guess I know right now the industry is a bit hard to get into, but I think just following your passion always pays off. And I think a tip that I would give you, for example, the character I presented, I spent so much time on it, but thanks to that character, I had so many opportunities. So just hanging in there and doing a project from start to end, really going the extra mile and not be afraid to spend too much time on it, because in the end, people will see how much time and love you put into it, I think.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I think that's it.
It's super hard to see.
It's very hard to see.
Hey.
Hi.
Well, it's loud. I had a question related to OpenPBR. It's really cool that you guys are implementing it across the multiple programs. I have a question for, as a developer working in a studio where, for performance reasons, we're always going to have our own shader model, and it's unlikely we'll be able to completely switch over. The plan for continued support for that, like the last version of Designer, marked to OpenGL, is deprecated, which was a little terrifying. Painter still doesn't have API support in Python for any of the shader stuff. I was just wondering what the plan was moving forward, if that was going to continue to be supported, or the expectation is everything's going to OpenPBR.
We'll continue to support. I mean, the OpenGL report is deprecated, but it's not going away. We know there's a lot of production, a lot of games, a lot of studios relying on it for their custom shaders. So it will not evolve beyond what it is today, but it will definitely stay. We're not going to remove that. I think the goal is to eventually, the new OpenPBR is implemented through our own new renderer called Eclair. And our goal is eventually to make that as flexible as the old OpenGL viewports that will come over time. But of course, we're not going to deprecate any of the old stuff until we get feature parity on the new renderer. So the plan is to allow that customization. But for now, if you want to really customize your viewport, you still need to rely on the kind of legacy OpenGL renderer.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Ha, and I'm a student at SCAD, and I'm a 3D character art as well. So I would love to ask Lucrezia a question about your setup for hair and eyes in Substance Painter, because it looks amazing in Substance Painter, and I'm wondering what did you do with the shader, and are you like texturing everything in one Substance Painter file, or do you prefer to split it up, especially for eyes and hair?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So how I organize my files? Well, actually, I had one file per texture set because my computer at home isn't that powerful. But I think that today with the flat enough textures, it could work in one file. But yeah, originally I split them into each file. And then how I set up the shaders, I think I pretty much used the default PBR shaders, except for the face, I activated the subsurface scattering. So yeah, I didn't do anything fancy. And for the hair, I set up the alpha masking. But in the end, the shaders that I have for my final renders, it's not in Substance Painter, so it's still doing some back and forth to see exactly the result of my shader, to have some, for example, for the hair, have anisotropy and all of that stuff. But yeah, in Substance Painter, it's not anything fancy. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. I don't know if I forgot a part of your question.
Yes, that's really answered my question. Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, so my question is kind of for all three of you. I'm currently a student studying animation, both 3D and 2D, but my personal background is in 2D animation, so I have a lot of connections to like Photoshop, the more traditional Adobe programs. So I know you guys are working on these like new connections with ZBrush, with other programs. Are there any new additions for working with more traditional programs, or new issues that we might encounter when working with these new updates with more traditional programs?
Yeah, I don't know if you want to talk about After Effects. I mean, we're working a lot of things that we can't talk about today, but I think one thing we can talk about is the link with After Effects. I don't know if you want to.
Well, I think what you're referring to is more like do you mean like 2D with like animation or like drawing like with Photoshop and stuff?
Kind of both, just especially with the additions to, the new additions to being able to port to ZBrush. I'm not super familiar with how with the back-end information, but if there's anything new there, if there's any issues that we might encounter with the new porting system.
Oh, well, okay. I'll just to be quick about it, and then after we could talk more, because I'm actually really excited about this. So there's a lot of things where I think. Having been primarily a 3D artist, lately I've been doing a lot of 2D art, drawing, things like that. And I've been looking at all kinds of different ways of bringing the two worlds closer together. And so some of that has been things that I did with Photoshop and paintovers with various 3D models, and then connecting in some kind of tools where I can use those to kind of help bridge gaps between like how like getting 3D content into there. So there's some neat things we could talk about with that. I learned a bunch of different workflows and techniques. Like we don't have like a tool we can say today, but there's lots of really neat workflows with that kind of stuff. Also doing other fun stuff like just using like if you work on the iPad, like I'm using ZBrush on the iPad a lot, but then I'm also using it's an Adobe tool called Fresco, which is drawing and painting on the iPad. It's completely free. Oh. Like super free. We use that a ton, and looking at ways of doing like it's really great because it has these. This little motion timeline where you can do frame-by-frame animation with onion skinning really well. So I was looking at ways of like getting that. Like one of my coworkers was was creating stop motion animation that he was then translating into 3D models from 2D and stuff like that.
Super cool.
So it's really exciting. There's a lot of really cool things we could do. I'll be around that little table booth that we have, so me and some other people from the team, and we could just talk to you all day about it. There's lots of really neat stuff. So anyways, but yeah, I think that the bridge between 2D and 3D, like they're way more close than what people realize, and there's lots of really cool workflows and stuff. So
Absolutely, thank you.
sure.
Hi there.
Last question, but yeah, go ahead.
Hi there. My name is Allison Knight. I just graduated, or excuse me, I am currently a junior at DigiPen for 3D modeling. But when it comes to ZBrush and your workflow with bringing in objects with hard surface modeling, do you find that you bring that into Maya? Do you bring that into ZBrush in terms of like, what is your process like when it comes to making hard surface and importing? Like, how do you see all of those detailed pieces together? Like, do you separate it polygroups, or what has been your kind of organizational style in that sort of sense?
So for art surface, I modeled everything directly into ZBrush with the Z modeler because I really like just doing everything in ZBrush. And yeah, using polygroups a lot, especially to do my UVs afterwards. And yeah, thinking everything for the UVs and for my subdivisions afterwards. So it's a lot of planning, but yeah, and sometimes I do some modifications in another software such as Blender or 3ds Max with the GoZ plugin. So that's really useful to just do back and forth between the modeling and the UVs. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. If you have more questions, we'll be at the table all week. Feel free to stop by and then ask anything. Thank you all for coming.